Okay, does everyone have this file open on your computer? All right. If you just arrived, make sure you go to the Moodle and download the file. This is 6.1. Okay. So we're going to start with layers. Why do we want to use layers in AutoCAD? If you look at the drawings you drew last week in the tutorial, they're pretty simple, right? So you don't really need layers to separate or group different components in your drawing. But the drawing can get really complex. Let's say you're making a robot, so there are different systems in the robot design. And say if you're designing even just a simple floor house like this, there are different components in the drawing. So you will have the structural system, electrical, mechanical systems, and piping. So if you draw everything on a single layer, you imagine what will happen. So if you want to change something, you need to pick all the relevant shapes out and change their appearance or their property. So that's why in complex drawings, we want to use different layers to help us organize the objects. And when the objects are on each layer, we can change the properties and appearance very easily. So we'll go through that in this section. So now let's look at the projector and go with me together. So you're welcome to also do the same thing on your computer. So I'll try to be slow. Okay. So this drawing you're looking at is a single floor layout, building layout. And you can tell it's pretty colorful. So quite different from what we saw last week or what you were doing in a tutorial last week. And you can probably tell different colors represent different components in this drawing. So there are furnitures, pretty much they're all in green. And then the walls are in red, doors in blue. So why they're in different colors? So now let's go to the Home tab and look at the ribbon. So there is a layers panel here. So this is where you can check the layer setup and also change the layer allocation of these shapes. So now let's take a look at this layer tab, this layer panel, and there's a drop-down menu here. So if you click that, you'll see all different kinds of layers in this drawing. And you can easily tell from their name what they are for. So they're layer for appliance, for desk, door, electrical, furniture, that's the dark green, as you can see in the drawing. So these are all the layers in this drawing. And okay, before I talk more about layers, I'm going to introduce you a very handy function in AutoCAD. Some of you probably have checked this out last week. So let's say when you put your cursor or crosshair on an object, there's a pop-up window that says it's a line, and the color is red. It says by layer. And layer tells you it's in the wall layer, and the line type is by layer. So what does by layer means? It means the property of this line or this object, the color and line type properties are set as the same setting of the layer. So if the layer is red, then this line, because it's by layer, so it's also red. Now this is the pop-up window. If you select that object and right-click, in this contextual shortcut menu, you'll see at the bottom there are properties and quick properties. So let's check out the quick properties first. So there's a small window here. It also shows you the color, layer, line type, and also length, similar to the pop-up window, right? But the difference is here you can actually change it. So change the layer, change the color, sorry. And so you can see this by layer or by block or individual colors. So if you change the individual color, it will change this particular object. So the object's color will not follow the layers property anymore. It will be its individual color property. So let's keep it by layer. And you can also change the layer here. But this is not recommended. I'll let you guys know what's a better way to change this layer. But here you can check out which layer it is at. Also line type and length. This is the quick property menu. Let's right click it again, see the full properties menu. So you're looking at more information here about this object. Again, color, layer, line type scale, line weight, transparency is also by layer. And more information about this geometry. So start, end points, and all this stuff. So you can tell from the properties of this object, many of its properties are controlled by the layer, right? So the color, line type, line weight, transparency. So this is how you use layer to change the property of each single object. And of course, when you group them or assign them into a layer, they should be of the same group or category. For example, they're all doors, they're all walls, so you can change them together. Okay, so that's the quick property and property menus. Let's go back to the layers menu. Okay, let's open this drop-down box here. So you can see different layers. If you look at from the right, it starts from its name and the color of this layer. So the color here means if all the objects on this layer will be in this color. If the object's color and other properties are set to by layer. So you can override this by change the individual object's color, as I showed you before. So color is one very important property for us to increase the readability of the drawing. So you can differentiate them. And now if we look to the left, you'll see three small symbols here on each layer. So the first one is the on and off status of this layer. The second one is freeze or thaw. And the third one is lock or unlock. So let's see what it will do to the objects. So now we're in the wall layer. So you can be on other layers if you want, just for demonstration. And we're on the wall layer. So see what will happen if I turn this layer off. So you see all the red lines disappear, right? So they're hidden. Do it off, turn it on. So with the on and off status, you can toggle the visibility of that layer. So if you turn it off, you cannot select it anymore. So that you cannot edit it, and it will make your drawing cleaner if you want to work on other components on the drawing. And now let's turn it back on and try to freeze and thaw. So if I click here, now that layer is frozen. But you may notice that it's similar to on and off, right? It just disappeared or hidden. So what's the difference between freeze and off? So actually the difference is very subtle. So this is a legacy in AutoCAD. So in the early times, when the computers are not very powerful and you have a very complicated drawing, so when you turn it off, it's actually still, it's visible, it's invisible to you, but it's visible to AutoCAD. So it's still rendered in the background. So it's still consuming the computation power. But if you freeze it, So it's also invisible to AutoCAD. So the program will run more efficiently. But these days, it doesn't really make a difference because we have very powerful computers. So basically, they'll do the similar thing when you're using them. Now, if we go to lock and unlock, this is different. So let's say still we're on the wall layer, and if I unlock it, and if you zoom in, probably wall is not the best demonstration here. Let me go to furniture, and I'll make this current. Okay, so if we try the furniture, okay. Okay, is there anybody in the other room? Can you hear me okay? Can they hear me okay? Okay. Good. So with furnitures, we're looking at the furniture layer, and if I lock it, see what's going to happen. So they kind of faded, right? So they become transparent. And if I put my crosshair on them, it shows a lock symbol there. So the difference between this one and freeze or off is you can still see them. And when you draw something, you can even still snap onto them. But you're not going to, you're not be able to change the property or edit them, say move or rotate them. But you can still use them as a reference. So this is lock and unlock. And with lock, you can actually toggle the transparency. So let's see here if I lock the furniture layer. And by the way, if you lock the layer, you can see all the components on this layer are locked. The same as off and freeze. So all the components, all the objects on this layer will be freezed, will be off, or will be locked. Let's try here, change the transparency or fading of the locked layer. You can see it's become more transparent as I increase this percentage. So this is how you can toggle the visibility of that locked layer. All right, so let's unlock that layer. And let's check out together other functions in the layer panel. So if you look at the small buttons icons here, so they are basically the same as how you will toggle the layer's status. But if you click on the off, and then this text here prompts you to select an object on the layer to be turned off. So here you can select different objects instead of indicate in the drop-down menu which layer you want to turn off. So say I want to turn off this layer, click on it. All the object on this layer is now off. So if you're not sure, okay, if you want to hide an object or the layer this object belongs to, but you're not sure which layer that is. So you can actually click on that object to hide it. Now this button here below it, so I can turn all the layers on. So when I turn it on, you can see there are a lot of stuff here actually, because some of them are actually off when I open this file. So again, now I can turn the irrelevant layers off by click this button and then click on the object I want to turn off. So say this electric light, I can turn them off. And this button here is freeze. So it works similarly to off. When you click on this button and then you click on the object, technically it will be frozen, but you can see here it gives me a notification here says cannot freeze layer furniture because it's the current layer. So this is the concept of the current layer. So current layer is a layer you will draw things on. Say if now the furniture is my current layer, whatever shape I draw here is on this furniture layer. And you can see the new objects will inherit the property of that layer. It's grain, right? Because this is my current layer. So how do you change the different layers? So if you click on one object, you'll see this window here. It indicates you which layer it's on. But if I click away or hit escape, it'll go back to the current layer. So it doesn't stay there, but it just indicates you which layer that's on. So if you select that, and it shows appliance layer here, and you can make this current. So now the appliance layer is the current layer. So the new object you draw will on the appliance layer. Pretty simple. So you can tell from the notification I got, you cannot turn off the current layer or freeze it or lock it. Now let's talk about a new function here in the layer panel. So if you hover your cursor here, this is called isolate. So this is a very handy tool when you want to isolate one layer from other layers. So say I want to work on the furnitures. So I don't want to show any of other layers. Instead of turning all other layers off, I can isolate this layer. So if you click on this button, and then click on the object belongs to that layer you want to isolate. And now you need to hit enter or right click enter to confirm it. So if I click enter, you can see all other layers are turned off. So for isolate, you can turn other layers off, or you can actually lock other layers. So there's an option here. So if you open this layer property, and we'll go through this in just a minute, but let me just show you how you can change the isolate function. So in the setting here, it says isolate layer settings. So when you isolate the object, you can choose to lock and fade it or to turn it off. So if you lock and fade it, remember when we see if you lock and hide it, you can still see the object, but it's in a faded color. So let's say if we click the isolate again, and I want to isolate this furniture layer, click on it, enter to, did I confirm it? Okay, probably didn't hit OK. Let's OK it, everything on, isolate that layer. So now all other layers fade out. So you can work on this, but still have the reference of other objects. So that's isolate, and how you can change the isolate function to lock or to turn off the layer. Okay, now let's turn everything back on again. So how do you assign an object into a layer? So when you draw a new object, you can choose the layer and draw on it, make the layer current. What about existing objects or existing shapes? So let's say I want to assign this furniture shape into 0 layer. So by the way, the 0 layer is always there when you start a new AutoCAD file. So that's by default. But remember, never draw everything on the 0 layer, because that will just complicate things. So you always want to have different layers, even you're drawing a very simple shape. So for a simple shape, you probably still want to have the dimensions. In that case, you want to create a dimension layer to differentiate the dimension objects to your actual shape. But remember, you always have this 0 layer when you start a new AutoCAD file. So now let's say I want to assign this, this couch to the 0 layer. And you see if I put my mouse here, it actually changed to white color. So that indicates a preview of this assignment. If you click on the 0 layer, now this is on the 0 layer. So if I hit escape, it says the current layer is the furniture layer, and then click on this, it says this one is on the 0 layer. So this is one way to assign an object to a different layer. Let me show you another way. So let's say I want to assign this couch into the 0 layer. So I can do match layer. So if I click on match layer, it tells me to select the objects. I select this object, and you see this window stay as select objects. So it means you can select multiple objects. It also means you need to hit enter to come to the next command. And now it says select object on the destination layer. So say I want to assign that one to the 0 layer, and I know this couch is on 0 layer. So I click on the destination layer, and it changed to that layer. So this is the match layer function. So you can choose one object, and then select the destination layer, and then match them. So that's another way. And a different way, another way here is change the current layer. So let's say the current layer is furniture, right? And I want to change this back to the furniture layer. I can click this, change to the current layer. And then it asks me to select the objects. So I select these two objects here, hit enter. Now they change to the current layer. So there are many different ways to change layer or assign an object to a layer. So these are some commonly used functions to do that. And there are some other functions. I'm not going to demonstrate them all, but you're welcome to try them all if you want. And again, if you put your cursor on it, it will tell you what this function does. Okay, let me see. Okay. So now another button icon here in the layers panel is called Layer Properties Manager. If you click on this, this will open up a big window here. And it's probably a pop-up window on your computer if you do it, but you can anchor it onto the side of the window if you want. So you can see here, it contains all the layers. So it's a list of all your layers. And it's easier to play with the layers in the manager because now you have the different titles. You can sort them by name or sort them by their on and off status. And here, if you enlarge this window, you will see all the properties of that layer in addition to the color. So like we saw earlier, so for line, in addition to the color, line type, line weight, transparency, they're all by layer. They can all be set to by layer. This is how you change the properties of each layer for line type or line weight. And you see here, there are only two line types, but you can actually load all other line types if you want. So you can load them into your line type and select them here. So let's try something. So if I want to set my furniture layer, the line type, to a dashed line, for example. So now you can tell from this check symbol here, the furniture layer now is the current layer. This check mark here indicates the current layer. And if you go to line type, let's load a new line type here. Let's just use this dash line. Okay it. Now I choose this dash line. So you can tell from here, it changed to a new line type. And if we look at this here, it's shown here. Let me see why it's not changed. Yeah, some of them. Oh yeah, they're right. Let's see why. So it's just some furniture layer. Yeah, it's furniture layer. Okay, I think I know why. Okay, I think I know why. So, so if you click on this chair here, you can see this is a single object. So this is something actually we are not going to cover in this unit in AutoCAD, but this is a function called block. So you can see there's a tab block here. So here you can insert different objects, and they're already drawn in block. So that's why when you click on an object, if you look at the property, so this is by layer and also by block. So if it's by block, I think you cannot change it using the layer function. But here you can see some other lines are changed to the new line type. So this is how you change the line type property. And also line weight. Say I change this to a very thick line. So now it's not changed, as you can tell. This is because we're not turning the line weight on. So you can say here in the status bar, oops, okay. Good. On the status bar here, there's a button here that says show or hide line weight. So take a guess why we don't want to show the line weight in AutoCAD, at least in the drawing window. Because that will just make it very hard to read. So let's say if we turn it on. So you can see these walls are drawing a much thicker line width. And this is necessary when we print it out. So we want to differentiate different lines for different components. But it's really not necessary in the drawing window because it's hard to see other things, especially when you zoom out. So you can turn this off, but still retain the line width property. So when you print them, they'll be printed. And also if you turn this on, you can check if they're of the right line width you want. So if we turn this on, you can see all these line weight are changed to 0.5 millimeters. If we change this back, I don't know what's the original one, but let's just select one. We'll change it back. Okay, so that's how you use the layer property manager to change the properties of all the shapes on one layer. Let's see what else here I want to show you. So here, this is just like just like the windows, you can select multiple layers. But here you can only select one, right? You can only toggle the status of one layer. But here you can select multiple layers and turn them on or off altogether, or lock them all together. And you can even use Control A to select them all if you want to turn them all on or off. So now if you want to create a new layer, say we want to create a new layer for dimensions. So there's no button here to create a new layer. So the only button is here. So if you open the layer property manager, and this icon here is to create a new layer. If you hit on it, this new layer created, and you can change its name. Let's say I want to dimension. That's our new layer. And then you can change the color and change the line types on that layer. So that's how you create a new layer in AutoCAD. I think that's all I want to cover in the layer topic. So now I'm going to give you 20-30 minutes for you to practice on your own. So try to play with this figure here, assign objects to different layers, change layers, and also create a new layer using the functions we've talked about. And if you have any questions, raise your hands and we'll come to you. All right.